People like you don't belong in this bank." The words sliced through the glass partition like a blade. The banker didn't whisper. He wanted the whole lobby to hear. His hand trembled as he held up 2 checks. Then in one violent motion he ripped them down the center. Paper fragments drifted onto the counter like falling verdicts. Murmurs erupted. A man in line tilted his phone higher, red light glowing. Another whispered, "Did he just say that?" The lobby, built for quiet transactions, suddenly felt like a stage where dignity was on trial. She didn't flinch. A woman in beige stood perfectly still, arms folded, eyes calm. No designer logos, no diamond shine, just presence. Her silence unsettled the room more than his shouting. The banker leaned forward, knuckles white against the counter. "Fake checks again? Thought you could pull the same stunt twice." His spit flecked the glass as he barked. "Security! Get her out of here before she wastes more real clients' time." The guard beside him shifted. One hand brushed his radio, but his boots stayed rooted. He wasn't sure, was this routine enforcement or something uglier? Phones lifted higher. A young customer near the ATM muttered into a live stream, "They're accusing her without even scanning the documents. This is wrong." She breathed once, slow, measured, as if anchoring herself against the storm. She had heard this tone before at 23, when her first real estate commission was frozen under suspicious activity. At 26, when a loan officer labeled her high risk despite double the collateral. Different faces, same contempt. Now again, the banker jabbed a finger through the gap in the glass. "Answer me. Where did these checks come from? Whose money are you trying to steal?" Gasps spread. An elderly woman clutched her handbag. A young father lifted his toddler closer, whispering, "This doesn't feel right." Still, she said nothing, because silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. The banker's voice cracked louder. "Did you hear me? People like you always pretending, always lying." He slammed his palm against the partition. The sound rang across the lobby like a gavel. She remained steady, gaze unbroken. Calm wasn't weakness, it was the sharp edge of patience. And patience in this bank was about to reveal its power. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. The banker raised the torn halves of her checks like trophies, waving them at the crowd. "This is fraud, and I won't let it happen on my watch." His chest heaved, sweat gathering at his temple, but the room was no longer convinced. Whispers multiplied. Cameras rolled. The silence of one woman was louder than his rage. The room held its breath. She stood there in beige pressed blazer, clean lines, nothing flashy, no designer logos, no heavy gold. Just a slim leather case tucked beneath her arm and a quiet steadiness that looked out of place in a storm. To anyone else, she was a middle-aged woman depositing checks. But to the bank, or rather to the people who worked here, she was already a problem. Not because of the paper in her hand, but because of the skin she wore and the silence she carried. The manager arrived, heels sharp against the marble tiles. Julia Hahn, mid-40s, posture stiff, voice clipped like she had spent years turning irritation into policy. She scanned the torn checks on the counter, then scanned the woman in front of her. "This isn't valid," Julia said, each word tight. "You're wasting our time. If you don't leave, security will remove you." The guard shifted again, uneasy. The woman in beige finally moved one slow step forward. Her eyes didn't rise, didn't flare. She simply set the leather case on the counter with deliberate calm. Inside, papers waited. Not stolen, not forged. Documents that could silence 1,000 doubts in one motion. But she didn't open it. Not yet. Because this wasn't about documents. It never had been. "I've already explained," the banker hissed. "People like her pull this every month." His voice grew louder, catching the attention of everyone waiting near the service windows. "Big checks, no proof, no business being here." A client in line whispered, "He didn't even scan it." Another raised her phone higher. The woman didn't look at them. She didn't need to. Her stillness commanded more focus than their devices. Julia leaned closer, lowering her voice but not her contempt. "Your appearance doesn't match this transaction. I've worked here 20 years. I know when something doesn't fit." That word fit. It lingered like smoke. She had heard it before. At 26, standing in a loan office in Atlanta, presenting more collateral than required, only to be told, "You don't fit our client profile." At 32, walking into a property closing in Dallas, and being mistaken for the assistant instead of the buyer. And now here, Decades later, the same verdict wrapped in new packaging. The lobby air grew heavier, charged. The guard's hand hovered closer to his radio. Julia's eyes narrowed, ready to signal. And the woman in beige? She inhaled once. Calm, steady, the kind of breath that didn't just fill lungs, it filled the room, daring it to hold. Not yet, not now, but soon the truth would rise. The marble floor seemed to tighten beneath every step Julia took. She circled the counter, arms crossed, her heels snapping like gavel strikes. The banker, still flushed from tearing the checks, leaned toward her ear. His whisper wasn't quiet enough. "She's a fraud. Don't let her play us." Julia nodded once, her eyes sharp, her lips already curling into a smile that wasn't kind. She turned to the woman in beige. "Show me proof of income. Right now, or we'll treat this as attempted fraud." Phones angled higher. Someone in the corner whispered, "They're demanding proof before even logging her name." Another voice shot back, "Maybe they're right, those checks look huge." The crowd was splitting doubt on one side, outrage on the other. The woman stayed centered. Stillness radiated from her like gravity. Julia's smirk deepened. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you're not used to being called out." She tapped the counter twice, sharp. "Security. I said, escort her out." The guard shifted forward but didn't touch her. Not yet. His eyes flicked across the lobby, sensing the phones, the witnesses. "Do it!" Julia snapped. He froze. That hesitation enraged her more. "You think silence saves you?" Julia sneered. "Clients like you walk in with a smile and a fake card, then vanish with stolen money. Not today." That word, clients like you, it echoed. Bitter, old. At 23, she'd heard something nearly identical when her first account was frozen. People like you trigger red flags. At 35, when she attempted to buy a downtown property. This isn't the kind of place for your kind of client. Now again, same blade, different hand. A man near the velvet rope spoke up, voice trembling but firm. "She showed ID. I saw it." Julia whipped her head toward him. "Mind your business. Or do you want your account flagged too?" Gasps rippled through the lobby. The man sank back, phone still raised, eyes burning. The banker added fuel, his tone dripping with disdain. "Look at her. Dressed down, no appointment, walking in like she owns the place." He let out a short laugh. "Maybe she thinks confidence is currency." A woman near the espresso machine muttered, "That's disgusting." The banker heard her but didn't stop. He leaned closer, voice low but sharp enough to cut. "Tell me where you got those checks. Pawn shop? Lottery scam? Or did you just print them at home?" The words landed heavy. A few in the lobby laughed nervously, trying to mask their discomfort. Others shifted in outrage. The woman in beige did not move. Her silence didn't crack. Her eyes didn't break. Because this moment wasn't the peak. Not yet. But every insult was building the weight of what was about to come. And when it came, the lobby would never forget. The room waited for her to snap. The insults had piled high: fraud, scammer, thief. Any other client would have shouted, begged, stormed out. But she didn't. She stood anchored, arms folded, gaze steady, breathing slow. Not a twitch in her jaw, not a single word to bite back. Silence became its own spectacle. The banker shifted uneasily, as if her quiet was heavier than his rage. Julia's smirk faltered for half a second before she forced it back. "Why aren't you defending yourself?" she demanded, her tone louder than she intended. The woman's eyes moved once to the shredded checks on the counter, then back to Julia. No words, just that look. The security guard cleared his throat. For a moment, it sounded louder than any accusation. His hand lingered near his radio, but he didn't press the button. His eyes flicked toward the phones raised around the lobby. He knew this was already out of his control. One customer whispered, "She's not even fighting back." Another replied, "Exactly. And that's why it feels wrong." Julia slammed the counter. "Enough games. Say something." Still, she didn't. Because her silence wasn't surrender. It was steel sharpening. She had learned this long ago when pleading didn't help, when arguing only fed the fire. At 22, when her first commission was questioned, her protests made no difference. At 30, when she was denied a table at a restaurant she owned, raising her voice only gave them permission to dismiss her faster. So she had stopped giving them that power. Now she let silence do the talking. The banker shifted, red creeping into his cheeks. He laughed nervously, loud and forced. "See? She has nothing to say. That's guilt if I've ever seen it. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but this time it didn't agree. Phones tilted higher. A woman near the entrance whispered into her live stream. They're tearing up her checks, calling her names, and she hasn't said a word. This is going viral. The guard swallowed, his eyes fixed on her calm. Julia's voice cracked sharper, desperate to break the stillness. Security, why are you hesitating? Remove her now. But even he couldn't move. Because somehow, without a word, the balance in the room had begun to shift, and the longer she stayed silent, the more powerful that silence became. The first flash came from the corner. A red light blinked on a phone, small but undeniable. Keith, a young man in a gray hoodie standing by the ATM, lifted his camera higher. "This isn't right," he muttered, voice low but carrying. They didn't even scan her checks. His friend tugged his sleeve, whispering for him to stop. But Keith kept filming. At the rope divider, an older woman in pearls clutched her handbag tighter. Her voice shook. "She looks perfectly legitimate. Why are they treating her like a criminal?" The banker heard, spun toward the sound, and barked, "Mind your own business." His voice cracked, too loud, too harsh. Phones multiplied instantly. Two more angles now captured him. His rage, his words, his dismissal. Julia snapped her fingers, sharp and impatient. "Stop recording. This is private banking." The crowd didn't move. A man near the espresso machine raised his voice. "Then why are you yelling across the lobby? If this is private, keep it private." His phone stayed steady, lens unblinking. The woman in beige remained silent, arms still folded, her stillness now surrounded by a storm of witnesses. Another voice rose, shaky but firm. A college student near the door spoke. "I'm streaming this live. Horizon Bank, downtown branch, 11:32 a.m. Look at how they treat clients." His comments section pinged in real time. Emojis, outrage, disbelief flooding across his screen. Julia's lips tightened. "Turn that off. Now." But the command fell flat. Because the phones were no longer just recording. They were multiplying into an audience bigger than this lobby, bigger than this bank. The banker slammed his palm against the counter again. "You can record all you want. Fraud is fraud. We don't tolerate liars here." Gasps erupted. The words clung to the ceiling like smoke. The woman in beige finally shifted. Just one movement, her gaze sliding toward the cluster of phones. Calm, deliberate. She gave no signal, no plea, no approval. Just that look. And somehow, it was enough. The guard's eyes darted nervously between the witnesses. His fingers hovered over the radio but never pressed. He knew one push could escalate this into chaos, not just here, but online, everywhere. A teenager in line whispered, "This is going viral already." His friend replied, "Good. People need to see this." The tension sharpened. The air no longer belonged to the banker or the manager. It belonged to the crowd, to the devices capturing every second, and to the woman who hadn't spoken a single word. Silence, once heavy, was now contagious. And in that silence, power was shifting. Julia's patience snapped. The lobby had tilted out of her control phones raised, whispers thick, silence pressing in like a weight. She slammed her clipboard down on the counter, the crack sharp enough to jolt a few heads. "Enough," she barked. Her voice ricocheted across marble and glass. "You are not a client here. You are a con artist trying to bleed this institution dry." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman filming near the velvet rope whispered into her phone. She just called her a con artist, with no proof. Julia's glare didn't waver. "Your checks are worthless. Your story is worthless. You don't belong in this lobby, and you never will." The banker smirked beside her, emboldened. "Told you. These people come in dressed plain, pretending, trying to pass off fakes. Classic play." That phrase, "these people," hung heavy in the air. The woman in beige remained still, silent, not a flicker in her eyes. Keith, still filming from the ATM, whispered to his live stream. "Listen to that. Not a shred of professionalism, just bias on full blast." Comments flooded his screen. "Sue them. This is disgusting. Name the bank." Julia turned toward the guard, snapping again. "Why are you waiting? Remove her. She's trespassing now." The guard hesitated, jaw tight. He scanned the crowd, the cameras, the silent woman at the center. "She hasn't broken the law," he muttered, barely audible. But it was audible enough. "Amor morose supportive. Unified." Julia's face flushed red. Do your job." He didn't move. The banker stepped forward, voice dripping venom. "Look at her. Not a word, not a document, nothing. She can't even defend herself." He leaned closer, sneering. Silence is guilt. Silence was strategy, and everyone watching could feel it. An older man near the entrance finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You've humiliated her, torn her checks, called her a criminal, and she still hasn't raised her voice. Maybe the problem isn't her." Phones shifted toward him, capturing his words. Julia spun, furious. "Sir, if you don't step back, I'll have your account reviewed as well." The lobby erupted. Shouts, disbelief, outrage. And through it all, the woman in beige stood steady, unmoved, untouched. The accusations were louder, the hostility sharper, the crowd restless. But the storm was far from over. The peak hadn't come yet. It was still climbing. The lobby broke open with a sound no one expected. Rip. Julia snatched the leather case from the counter, the one the woman in beige had set down with such care. Before anyone could stop her, she yanked out the documents inside contracts, statements, letters, and tore through them like they were scraps of junk mail. Paper scattered across the marble floor, a snowfall of arrogance and violation. Gasps turned to shouts. "She can't do that," someone cried. Keith's live stream caught every shred drifting past polished shoes. His comment section exploded. "That's theft. File a lawsuit now." The banker cheered Julia on. "Finally! Show her we don't play games here." He grabbed one page that fluttered near his feet and ripped it in half himself, tossing the pieces toward the trash bin with a cruel grin. The woman in beige didn't move. Her hands remained folded, her eyes steady. Julia's voice rose, shrill and cracking. "Security, get her out, now, and I don't care if the cops have to drag her." She snatched the desk phone and dialed with trembling fingers. "Yes, this is Horizon Bank, downtown branch. We have a fraudulent client here. Possible theft. Send officers immediately." The words possible theft landed like grenades. The older man near the entrance shook his head in disbelief. "She brought checks. They ripped them up, and now they're calling the police?" Phones turned toward him, toward Julia, toward the silent woman at the center of it all. The guard's chest rose and fell, heavy. His hand finally touched the radio, but he didn't press it. His eyes were conflicted, pulled between orders and conscience. Julia barked into the receiver. "Yes, African-American female, mid-40s, attempting to pass forged documents, uncooperative, dangerous." That last word, dangerous, sent a visible chill through the lobby. "Dangerous? She hasn't even moved," a young woman shouted. Julia ignored her, eyes wild, sweat beading at her temples. She slammed the phone down, metal clattering against plastic. "Officers are on their way," she declared. "And when they arrive, you'll wish you had left when you had the chance." Silence followed, thick, unbearable. The banker leaned close, his whisper cruel but audible. "Game's over. You're done here." Still, she stood, silent, not because she was powerless, but because patience had reached its sharpest point, and soon it would cut through every lie in this lobby. The paper scraps still floated near her shoes when she finally moved. One hand slipped into her blazer pocket, calm, deliberate. She pulled out a slim black phone, its screen glowing against the sterile light of the lobby. For the first time since the ordeal began, her voice cut the air. "Carla," she said, steady, measured. Every head turned. Even Julia froze, startled by the sudden sound after so much silence. On the other end, a voice answered instantly. Crisp, professional. "I'm here. Begin Protocol 6, the woman in beige ordered. Audit everything time, stamp, audio, video, log employee conduct." Phones in the crowd lowered slightly as witnesses leaned in, realizing this wasn't a desperate call to family or a plea for help. This was something else, calm, rehearsed, commanding. "Yes, ma'am," Carla replied without hesitation. "Already linking the system. Internal review team is online." Julia blinked, confusion cracking her fury. "Who are you calling? That doesn't matter. Security, seize the phone." But the guard didn't move. He stood rooted, eyes narrowed, finally catching the truth in the weight of this woman's composure. The banker scoffed, trying to reclaim dominance. "What, you think a fake phone call is going to save you? To who, your cousin? Your TikTok followers?" His laugh was thin, brittle. The woman ignored him. "Carla," she continued, tone sharpened, "add this to the log. Manager identified client as fraud without verification. Called law enforcement citing danger. Checks destroyed without processing." "Yes, ma'am." "Logged," Carla replied. The crowd stirred. Someone whispered, "She sounds like she's done this before." Another voice added, "She's not rattled at all." Julia snapped, voice cracking. "Stop pretending, that's not real, you're bluffing." The woman in beige turned her gaze on her slow, steady, piercing. "If you believed that, you wouldn't be sweating." The silence that followed was suffocating. Keith's live stream chat exploded. "Did she just say that?" Boss energy. "She's got receipts." Julia opened her mouth, then closed it. Her smirk was gone, her confidence crumbling. The banker shifted back toward the counter, muttering, "This is ridiculous." But his voice no longer carried the same authority. Because the room felt different now. The woman who had stood silent for so long had finally spoken, and in just a handful of words, she had shifted the balance of power. The crowd wasn't just filming anymore. They were listening. And soon, they would learn why. Julia tried to recover, her voice shrill and thin. "This is nonsense. She's stalling until the cops arrive." But the woman in beige didn't flinch. She lifted her phone again, pressing one button with calm precision. A soft chime echoed from the speaker. "Carla," she said, her tone edged with finality, "open my profile in the Horizon Ownership Registry. Project it to the branch system." "Yes, ma'am." "One moment." The banker scoffed. "Ownership registry? What is this, monopoly?" Then the lobby lights flickered just once, a subtle shift as the screens behind the counters updated. Every terminal, every monitor, every employee login flashed the same words. "Executive override. Carter Holdings, LLC. Majority shareholder." Gasps tore through the room. Keith's live stream zoomed in. His chat exploded. "She owns the bank? No way, no way. This is history." Julia staggered back, eyes wide, throat dry. That can't be real." But the evidence glared at her from every screen. The banker's smirk collapsed. His hand, still gripping a shred of torn paper, trembled. "No, this has to be a mistake." The woman in beige finally stepped forward. Her voice, calm but cutting, filled every corner of the lobby. "You called me a fraud," she said, measured, deliberate. "In the bank I own." The sentence cracked through the air like thunder. Phones lifted higher. Someone near the entrance whispered, "That's it. That's the moment." Julia tried to protest, her words tripping. "You can't prove." But the terminals did the proving for her. Each login, each badge, each display cycling the same name. Carter, owner, majority stakeholder. The guard stepped back, his radio slipping from his hand. He wasn't guarding her anymore, he was guarding himself. Customers whispered, gasped, shook their heads in disbelief. A woman in pearls clutched her chest. All this time they were insulting their own boss? The banker muttered again, weaker now. "No, no, she can't be." His voice cracked into silence. The woman's gaze swept the room, steady, unbroken. "This lobby isn't yours to police," she said, voice low but carrying. "It's mine. Every wall, every desk, every badge, mine." And with that, the balance shattered. Power, once claimed by rage and arrogance, had been reclaimed by truth. The room wasn't just watching anymore. They were witnessing history. The silence didn't just hang, it crushed. Every terminal screen glowed with the same words. Executive override. Carter Holdings, LLC. Majority stakeholder. Julia's breath hitched audibly, a sound too small for the marble hall but caught by every phone in the lobby. The clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering against the counter like a gavel striking its last note. The banker staggered back, red blotches crawling up his neck. His smirk, so loud just minutes before, had dissolved into something hollow. He opened his mouth, but only fragments came out. I didn't, until finally, silence devoured him too. The half-torn paper in his grip drifted from his fingers and landed at his shoes like a confession. The guard, once rigid, seemed smaller now. He lowered his radio, shoulders sinking, eyes darting between the CEO and the sea of phones, capturing his every hesitation. Sweat dotted his temples. The thought was written on his face, "One wrong move, and I'm done too." Then came the voices. First a whisper, "She owns it?" Then another, sharper, "She's the boss?" Until the murmur grew into a wave of disbelief rolling across the lobby. Keith's live stream spiked. His comments scrolled faster than he could read. "No way. They ripped up the honors checks? Fire them live right now. 10,000, 20, 50,000 viewers climbing by the second. The tension cracked with the sound of hands. One pair, deliberate, slow, an older woman in pearls, tears brimming as she clapped from the velvet rope divider. The rhythm was steady, defiant. A man in a denim jacket joined, striking his palms harder, sharper. Soon the noise spread like fire. Applause. The lobby filled with it, echoing off glass, ricocheting against marble, drowning the banker's shame, burying Julia's panic. Phones lifted higher to capture not just her stillness, but the rising tide of respect around it. Julia's lips trembled as she tried to summon authority that had already fled. We didn't know. We thought... Carter's voice cut through, calm, surgical. Respect should not depend on what you know, or who you recognize. The words landed harder than any scream. The crowd answered with cheers. The banker shook his head violently, denial clinging like a lifeline. No, this must be a mistake. You can't be... But the screens contradicted him again, every login cycling the same name. Carter, owner, majority stakeholder. His face collapsed. He whispered, almost to himself, "We've ruined everything." The guard's voice broke into the moment, low and pleading. "Ma'am, I never touched you." I hesitated. "I swear." Carter's gaze locked on him, steady as stone. "That hesitation may have saved you. Remember it the next time silence tempts you to act." Oh, phones caught it all. The internet roared. In the corner, a teenager spun his camera toward his screen. "Look, 100,000 live right now." The chat was chaos. Iconic. "This is justice." Clip that line, "Hesitation saved you." Julia slumped into her chair, face buried in trembling hands. The manager who moments ago barked commands now looked like a child caught in the middle of a crime. The banker paced in short, frantic steps, muttering, "Please, no, this isn't. We were just doing protocol." His voice was swallowed by applause and jeers from the crowd. The applause didn't stop. It built, rolling, unrelenting. Not polite clapping, but a storm of vindication. Customers rose from their chairs, stood in line with their phones high, capturing the collapse of arrogance and the quiet rise of truth. Carter did not move, did not smile. She didn't need to. The room was doing it for her. They weren't just witnesses to humiliation. They were participants in justice. The applause still thundered when she raised her phone again. One quiet gesture, but it cut through the noise. The crowd hushed, waiting. "Carla," Carter said evenly. "Terminate access for Julia Hahn, branch manager. Effective immediately." A beat. Then Carla's voice, clear, unwavering through the speaker. "Confirmed. Credentials revoked. Badge access disabled." Julia gasped as her terminal went dark before her eyes. The login screen blinked, then vanished. She fumbled for her ID card, swiped it across the reader, red light. Denied. Again. Red. Again. Red. Her hands trembled. "No, no, please. There must be a mistake." Carter's gaze didn't soften. "You made the mistake, and now the system remembers it." Phones zoomed in, capturing Julia's face as the reality settled. She no longer worked here. Not in this branch. Not in any branch. Not anymore. "Next," Carter said, her tone steady, surgical. "Terminate access for Thomas Green, senior banker." The man froze, mouth open. "Wait." His screen blinked, blackened, logged him out. His chair beeped as the security lock engaged. His phone buzzed with an email. "Employment terminated." Gasps rolled through the lobby. Keith's live stream comments exploded. "Live firing! Bro just lost his job on camera. This is legendary." Carter continued without pause. "Any employee who participated in this act flagged. Legal will follow up. Freeze all their accounts pending investigation." "Yes, ma'am," Carla replied. The guard stiffened, waiting for his name, but it didn't come. Carter's eyes flicked to him briefly. "You hesitated. That may have saved you. Don't waste it." His breath shuddered out, relief and terror in equal measure. Julia slumped into her chair, face drained, lips trembling. Thomas pressed his palms against the counter, eyes wet, muttering, "Please, I have a family." But Carter's voice didn't waver. "So do the people you humiliate. So did I, when this happened to me years ago, and no one cared." The applause swelled again, louder, fueled by vindication. This wasn't just punishment, it was correction, immediate, public, irreversible, justice, delivered in real time. The room was still ringing with applause when Carter finally turned toward the crowd. Phones hovered high, capturing every breath, every word. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. This, she began, steady and deliberate, is why silence is not weakness. It is patience, and patience will always outlast arrogance. Her gaze swept across the lobby at Julia crumpled in her chair, at Thomas staring blankly at his dead screen, at the guard frozen by the velvet rope. Then she looked at the customers, their faces lit by phone screens, eyes wide with something between awe and relief. "You called me a fraud," Carter said, voice tightening just enough to cut. "In the bank I built. You tried to erase me in the very system I own. You thought tearing paper could tear down truth." Gasps broke, followed by cheers, a storm of voices surging behind her word. "But truth doesn't rip," she continued. "It doesn't vanish. It stands even in silence, especially in silence." The elderly woman in pearls wiped her eyes, clapping through tears. Keith's live stream numbers surged past 200,000. Comments exploded. "Clip that line now. That's history. She's iconic." Carter lowered her phone, ending the call with Carla. The action was quiet, but final. Her eyes locked on Julia one last time. "You lost this job because you chose prejudice over professionalism, and that choice has consequences. Remember it, wherever you go next." Julia buried her face in her hands, unable to look up. Carter turned, her heels clicking once against marble. She walked toward the glass doors, the crowd parting without a word. Phones followed, capturing her steady stride like the lens of history. Just before she reached the exit, she paused, her head turned slightly, voice carrying through the lobby like the last strike of a bell. "Dignity doesn't need to shout. It only needs the truth." And with that, she stepped into the sunlight, leaving behind a room full of shattered arrogance, humbled faces, and witnesses who would never forget what they'd seen. The applause didn't stop. It followed her out the door, rolling like thunder into the street. And online, it had already become something more, not just a moment, a movement.